Hello, this is Natsu Uesugi, author of the novel and manga Grydscaen series. And today on Mixed Manga Writer, we're going to talk about creating print files for your manga. And once the file is printed, you will get the galley, which you can review and then approve before the print run is done. Now, just to give a disclaimer, I will be talking about Adobe InDesign for this video. And I will also be talking about using a local printer. So I actually get to go to the printer and talk to them. And once they have completed the proof, I actually get to go see it. If you are using a printer that is in another country, some people get their manga printed from China. I know there has been some issues maybe with distribution and receiving files and backup of shipping, but I do use a local printer, so I don't have to worry about that. And okay, so let's get started. So there are two different ways to do this, and I again will be using InDesign. Once you have all the pages and they're completed and have all the words, printers do print in CMYK. So if you are working on your pages in RGB color, make sure that they are should be modified and changed to CMYK. Sometimes they can turn out darker, so please do make sure that you have the right colors for your file, because the printer will print in CMYK. That's just how it's done. You're going to want to choose the paper. For my covers, I do use 100-pound paper, and I do, for the covers, I also use matte. And yeah, for this version, this file of the Grydscaen Scout manga, the whole thing is in color. So normally I just do the cover in color and the interior pages are black and white in grayscale, but for this volume we're going to be color pages, interior, and a color cover. So you do have a printer spread and a reader spread. So the reader spread is how the pages are laid out for a reader. So 1, 2, 3, beginning to end. The printer spread is how the printer is going to print it, and so the pages are not aligned. So the middle pages, so say if you have page 5 and 6, will be right next to each other, but then you'll go out. So your file might be 1, 10, 2, 9, all the way to the center of the file, and that's a printer spread of how it will actually be printed. And that's how the pages are laid out by the printer. And so if you do have a PDF file that is created, they can actually work with that. And so when I'm working with InDesign and I turn files into the printer, I turn the PDF file, which is an export generated from the InDesign file, and I also provide them with the package file, which is the InDesign file plus all the links and the typeset face and all the individual pages, so that they have that, and that packages up the entire project for them. And so that is very helpful. I've done some magazine printing before, and that has been helpful. Now I do have an older version of InDesign, so I'm not using the cloud version. I'm using the last desktop version, and so that was easier for me. And so my files are created in InDesign. You can use other formats for that. I do create the pages traditionally, so all of the drawings are in pencil on manga paper, and then the coloring is using Copic markers. The screen tone is done traditionally with a tone hair and an X-Acto knife and laying it down. So that is not done in the computer. So depending on how you do it, that may be different. Now, I do use Clip Studio Paint to add the word bubbles, and I do use Photoshop to add the text. But otherwise, the final book is formatted in InDesign and exported to a PDF and a package file. That is sent to the printer. I usually do get a quote from them. They print it in CMYK and not RGB, and then I get to see the proof, approve that before they do the print run. So this is usually how it works. I do an initial run, the first print run, which is for my beta readers, and then depending on the feedback I get there, will depend on what the second print run looks like, and then from there my manga will be put up on normally Barnes & Noble, sometimes depending on if I want to go wide. Otherwise it will be in Kindle Unlimited, and then I use Kindle Create to create the Kindle file. I also use a file converter to change the files into mobi and epub for other platforms. And that is it. And that's all based off of the PDF export that is coming from the InDesign file. And so you lay out the pages, you place them in InDesign, you format them, you have page numbers, and you can do the whole book. When you're talking to a local printer, you're going to want to know the binding, the page weight. Do you want it in color or interior pages in black and white? All that needs to be done. You can work that out with the printer, and because I'm working with a local printer, I get to do it in person. So when you're working with the printer, make sure that you've got the margins and the slug and the bleed set up, that you have printer marks, and that you also have crop marks turned on. Make sure it's in CMYK, because that's how you're going to print it. If it is in RGB, check your colors during the proof stage to make sure they're right. Sometimes it can come out too dark, so that is an issue. And make sure that when you get your proof that you really check it. If there are any, have your beta readers and your editors read it to make sure there are no spelling errors in the final version. If you are uploading it to Kindle Unlimited, make sure your pages, when you get to see the proof there, are set up properly, and they're not bleeding or overlapping or whatever else. And we'll talk about print files a little bit more. So thank you for stopping by.